Hi, I'm McLennan. I'm a Canon EOS master and I'm a commercial travel photographer. I've spent the last 20 years travelling the world photographing various different travel locations, and a large part of my work has now become wildlife photography. I guess one of the key things about shooting wildlife is learning about the subject you're going to shoot, what it is you want to capture about them, times of day that they're likely to be active or inactive if you want them that way, feeding times, their environment, safety issues if it's a large wild animal, the safety of the animal and yourself, and just generally a lot about the habitat and how they're going to behave, so that the more information you've got ahead of time, the more luck you can have. Most of the time with wildlife you really want to stay undercover as much as possible and not disturb them with your presence. There are some exceptions. For example, the grizzly bears, they're one of the few animals that you really need them to know that you're there. The people that do get into trouble on rare occasions with the animals, it's generally not the animal's fault. When I first went to Alaska, and the local guides, they have you walking along the trails and they make you sing. You've got to, if you're on your own, you've got to make a lot of human noise and make sure these guys know you're there. So one scenario that really applies to wildlife photography is the old saying of hurry up and wait. You can spend hours sometimes waiting and watching an animal, just waiting for the action to happen. There's a shot I've got of a couple of grizzly bears where I sat for 3 hours watching them. They were just sitting in a stream waiting. And we had a run of salmon come up the stream, and the two of them just launched at each other and started fighting over these fish, and you just had to be that ready, otherwise it was gone, the moment was gone. These rules and principles for wildlife photography don't just apply to the big wilderness locations. You can find things in your own suburb, your backyard, zoos. I've got a shot of a hummingbird that's been published all around the world, and it's got beautiful tones in the background, but it's actually the wall of a restaurant, the wall and the door of a restaurant, and the hummingbird's hovering around a little honeypot bird feeder. So there's a lot of scenarios where you can get it very close to home. You don't have to travel. I guess with each subject you need to decide whether you want the subject to be active or to be inactive. Feeding times generally for most animals are morning and evening. Cold-blooded animals, obviously they move slower when it's cooler, so morning and evening is a really good time if you want to get up close to reptiles, lizards, insects and things like that. They're going to move a lot slower than they do in the heat of the day, so really planning out time of day and what you want to achieve is a big thing. When shooting wildlife, pretty much like anything else, some of the nicest light's going to be early morning and evening. You get warm, soft glow and you can get really directional lighting. It's very easy for most people to get a shot with the sun over your shoulder directly on the subject, and it'll give you a good reliable result every time, but don't be afraid to experiment. Get some backlighting, some side lighting, do things a little bit differently. If you've got the sun directly behind an animal that has fur or whiskers, it really gives them a gold halo effect around them. Just make sure you're exposed for the animal itself, and you'll be surprised at the results you'll get. You could use a little bit of fill flash depending on the creature that you're shooting, of course. You don't want to upset them in any way or spook them, but it can help with just getting those exposures. Birds are another occasion. Birds flying, you could use a flash on that as long as you've got a nice strong flash. But generally I prefer just to use the natural light. There's a couple of different cameras that I use. The first one being the Canon EOS 1D Mark IV. Fantastic fast focusing, fast frame rate. You can fire off about 10 frames per second. It'll keep up with you for 12, 13 seconds. If you take the finger off, it'll keep up with you. As long as the wildlife's going to be there, this thing will keep up with it. Incredible low light capabilities, just an amazing all-round wildlife camera. One example of the benefits of the Mark IV is recently I was on a shoot in Alaska and I was shooting a herd of caribou. There was around 1,000 caribou on a hillside right next to me, and as I was watching, they were just slowly walking away up the hill, and then the local guide with me said he saw a wolf, and basically all these caribou turned and they just galloped down the hill in this fresh snow. There was snow and antlers flying everywhere. I was able to track them all the way, pretty much keep the finger on the button and just keep shooting as long as the action was happening. The camera, it kept up absolutely perfectly, and the images were amazing. The other camera that I use regularly is the 1DS Mark III. This baby here. It's quite incredible. It's got the maximum file size available. It's got the benefit of being a full frame sensor, so if you're wanting to shoot wide angle images, you can get a lot wider shot in, but really it just gives you the biggest picture possible. Now also keep in mind that you don't have to have one of these very expensive cameras to take nice wildlife pictures and to have a good time doing it. These are built to take the treatment. We're doing it full time all the time. They take the knocks, they're really a workhorse. You can have a lot of fun and get great images with pretty much any digital SLR. There's quite a range of different lenses you can use while shooting wildlife. I often use a wide-angle lens if I'm wanting to show the big environmental scene that a particular animal's within, or if there's an animal that you can get very close to. My favourite for the wide angle is the 16-35. It's a great versatile little wide-angle zoom, and I use it all the time. I also quite often use a macro lens. Now this enables you to either get in very close to small subjects, bring up an abstract image that you wouldn't see with your naked eye. You can get colours and textures that you literally can't see. And it really makes it quite interesting. You can also get close to a larger object and bring out the abstract features of that as well. So I really recommend playing around with the macro lens. You'll have a lot of fun. Zoom lenses enables you to frame your picture without actually having to move. You can zoom in and just pick out what part of it you want to show. Also allows you to get very shallow depth of field, which isolates your subject against the backgrounds. I use the 7200 quite regularly, but there are longer versions available. There's 100 to 400 if you don't happen to have a big telephoto lens that covers a bigger range for you. This is a 400 2.8, very fast, beautiful lens, so there's plenty of options there. I've got a particular shot here of some muskox in Alaska. They don't run away from you, they stay on the ground, and if you see the horns you'll understand why you don't want to get too close. Other equipment that you might want to consider is a tripod, a good solid tripod, or even a monopod to help support a long lens. The magnifications you get with a longer lens make it that much harder to hold it steady with your hand, so that's a big help. Also doing macro shots, the tripod is pretty much essential there, and I would use a cable release as well for the macro shots to stop getting any sort of vibration when you're pushing the button. Using a large aperture is going to give you a fast shutter speed, freeze the action, gives you a shallow depth of field so it really isolates your subject against the background. Really good for good all-round action shots, but sometimes that's not what you're looking for. You can also go the other way and go down to a smaller aperture, slow your shutter speeds down. I've got a shot right here of a bear. Luckily he was a very stationary bear sitting in the middle of a river. Slowed the shutter speed right down and given it a really nice dreamy effect on the water. So now we're getting such high quality, high ISO settings that it's actually giving us a third option, and we can really push it. I took this photograph in the rainforest in Borneo. It was very dark, so I had the camera set on a high ISO. Enabled me to grab the photo really quickly. Like, these guys are here one minute, gone the next, so I was able to get that shot handheld without setting up a tripod. I mean, photography is about your own personal expression. Get out there and experiment, try something different angles, different settings, see how it works, see how it feels. I mean, people are always coming up with new images, and other people are looking and go, wow, how do they do that? Just get out there and push it, have fun. Best advice that anyone ever gave me when I was starting out is not to pigeonhole yourself and shoot what people necessarily want you to shoot. Go out and follow your dreams and shoot what you want to shoot. And now, I look back and 20 years later, and that probably was the most valuable advice I ever had. I grew up in a little rural country town of 600 people, and now I've got clients all around the world. I'm traveling the whole time shooting exactly what I want to shoot, so that has really worked out for me. So follow your passion and get out there and do it.